Welcome to the What I Wish I Knew After Pregnancy Loss podcast. I am your host, Shana Southern. I am an angel mum, a rainbow mum, a pregnancy loss practitioner, and trauma-informed coach. I created the Institute of Healing Through Pregnancy Loss out of my own experience with loss in the hopes to provide understanding and healing, educating people on pregnancy loss, and creating more women or men in trained support roles. In this podcast, I hope to shed light on what I wish I knew in relation to pregnancy loss, opening up the conversation, breaking the stigma, and bringing real-life stories plus guest experts. Thank you for being here with me today, and let's dive into today's episode. Welcome, beautiful souls, to the What I Wish I Knew After Pregnancy Loss podcast. Today, I have with me the lovely Emma. Emma is a 26-year-old survivor of postpartum psychosis from regional Victoria. She has two beautiful daughters, an incredible partner, and is currently smack bang in the middle of her healing journey. She hopes to inspire other mums to advocate for themselves during motherhood and embrace what the precious world has to offer. Welcome to the show, Emma.
Hi, Shana. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. We have some important things to talk about today. So do you just want to start us off with your story and sort of how you came to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been a roller coaster, to say the least, but I suffered from my first miscarriage when I was 17. And that was with my partner, and we were more than prepared to start a life and start a family together. It was a surprise, but I was ready to tackle everything that came with motherhood, although I was so young. And look, unfortunately, yes, it led to a miscarriage, and as we were just speaking about, like, it didn't quite bubble to the surface again until I fell pregnant with our first daughter. It made me think a lot about my personal experience and the hospital that I went to when I did have a miscarriage. I was fortunate. I mean, not even really fortunate, I suppose, because of what, stays with you, but just the vivid memories and the images of, I felt terrible. I felt dehumanized. I was kind of sitting behind this curtain just waiting for my blood results to come back. And it was actually my mother-in-law that took me to the hospital. I was waiting behind the curtain and I could just hear the nurses sort of saying, we've got another one that's had a miscarriage. Like, just no empathy. I was just kind of palmed off, and I'm just sitting there like, I can't even describe it. And I think my brain partially blocked out a lot of that. And it took a bit of reflecting to do for me to actually realize, how I felt in that moment. It was a big loss, and walking down the corridor back to the car, like, it was, really, I just felt horrible, and like I had lost my entire future, really. And then we got home, and my partner was there, and then it's all a little bit of a blur from that moment. And obviously 11 years in a week we would have been together, my partner and I. So a very, very long time, long journey together. Then we conceived Darcy. So she was conceived towards the end of 2020. And that was like my entire life just lit up again. Like, we'd moved past, I suppose, the trauma of what had happened. But as we know today, that stuff stays in your mind and in your body for a very long time. And it wasn't until after I had my second daughter, that postpartum period, which I'm currently still in, sort of, although she's 7 months old, that was also, the chance for me to reflect on my pregnancy with Darcy and just come to the realization that it was just riddled with anxiety and paranoia. I was constantly fixated on whether she was okay, if there was a period where I didn't feel her movements or anything. It was just like my entire body and thought process took over me completely, and I actually didn't enjoy being pregnant at all. I hated every second of it. And yeah, it's incredible that something that can fortunately come so naturally for a lot of women, and everybody around you will encourage you to just let it go and listen to your body and all that sort of stuff and rest and this and this and that. And I was always really big on being able to like stand up for myself and say, well, no, this is my experience. That's not how it feels at all. And it just took away from the true blessing that pregnancy really, really is. So I made sure that when we planned for my second, when we planned for Kaylee, that I vouched, and I swore to myself that I wasn't gonna let this be an unenjoyable experience and take it for granted again. So yeah, totally different pregnancy with Kaylee. And yeah, I was again on top of the world, yet things very quickly spiraled when she was, sort of between 8 and 12 weeks old. Yes, still smack bang in the middle of my healing journey. I've got a lot of work to do. And yeah, I guess the main point, if you want me to keep talking, Shana, if you don't want to jump in at all.
No, I've just been listening along. I wanted to agree with you in terms of like how the medical system really is lacking empathy and compassion for everyone that's going through this. Like this is huge. And for them to see like a miscarriage at any gestation as trauma, as, just the same as someone coming in with a car accident injury or, a heart attack or something like that, where they rush to, get them seen to and support them. Yet miscarriage is, I believe, it's just up there with that life-altering trauma but the medical system dismisses it, downplays it. Oh, it's just a miscarriage. Like, you had those comments made to you behind the curtain.
Yeah.
I was met with complete blankness from the nurses. I'm like, did you even hear what I said? Like,
yeah.
Am I invisible? Like, what's happening?
Yes. Yeah. You're left in the dark, really. Yeah. You're left to brew in your own thoughts.
Yeah.
And that's horrible. That's something that not enough people, unfortunately, are willing to talk about and open up. It does it. Look, it literally leaves me speechless because the imprint, that leaves on the body and on the mind, it didn't quite bubble to the surface again, really. Like, I suppose you can grieve, move on for a certain period of time and then try again for a baby, all that sort of stuff. But it shouldn't have to be the mother's or the family. It shouldn't have to be the mother's self-reflection, and ongoing pain. It shouldn't be an extra responsibility that we have to have and extra pain that we have to endure, when really it just, for me, it would have taken one nurse just to maybe put her arm around me and go, I'm so sorry that this is your experience. I don't even think any of the medical professionals gave me an I'm sorry. Like, it was a while ago, like we're going on nearly 10 years ago, but you would think in that period of time that would improve, that the level of care and empathy would improve, because we're a growing population. There's more and more women, there's more and more families having babies, and there's more and more people that I think are starting to talk about the hard truth and the impact that this sort of stuff really has on people. And I just, I wish I had more of a close-knit sort of team. It was fully handed to me. It was my responsibility to make sure all my interventions were in place. And yes, I'd had a miscarriage. So yes, I will make sure to keep more on top of my mental health. It's just like, no, I want someone to do that for me. I want someone to help me with that. Because I guess the main point of this discussion, Shana, for me is what I went through after Kaylee. And again, as we said, it may or may not entirely be related to the pregnancy loss, but clearly I've had a lot, I've had a lot of issues with my mental health from a very young age, and from childhood trauma to pregnancy loss to, birthing two children, my two beautiful daughters. And then in such a short amount of time, that all literally, it's just flipped on its head. And I guess if I wasn't who I am today, then we may not be in this position. But it was around February. So my memory is still extremely scattered. And it kills me to say that the last 7 months, I'm truly only piecing together based off photos and videos and very vague memories. So it was in Feb that I went through postpartum psychosis. And again, that was something that I realized myself, my immediate family, even my GP, like nobody understood what was going on. It was kind of put down to this medication that I was given to treat generalized anxiety disorder, because surprise, surprise, your second baby is often quite different to your first. Yeah. And even in the womb, Kaylee never slept. And I was also looking after a 1-year-old. So that's when the insomnia began. And then she was born, and it would have been weeks where I couldn't even tell you how long I slept of a nighttime, maybe 2 hours at a time. She was breastfed, so that was very demanding. And then things just, I became all of a sudden so distressed, so anxious. And it was like, the psychiatrist I was seeing and my doctor and the maternal health nurse, everyone was like, Emma, you need sleep. You need to sleep. And it was this one particular psychiatrist. And I don't actually remember this appointment. God knows how I got there in one piece, but I did. And she goes, we sometimes use this particular medication to treat anxiety. It does have a sedative effect, all this sort of stuff. Being a nurse, I think I was so dismissed by a lot of health professionals because of this. They're like, you know the drill, you know what to do. Well, nah, not really. You're telling me to go and self-medicate pretty much. So misinformation. I put my, I suppose, psychosis experience down to this new medication, having an adverse reaction to it, also getting mastitis for the very first time. So in my mind, I was septic, I was infected with whatever. And that was, causing me to have auditory hallucinations and seeing things that weren't there. I'm still extremely paranoid of a lot of things today. And that in particular is a very traumatic experience. And to discover that on my own was rough, because the statistics, about 1 in 1,000 women will experience postpartum psychosis, but it's not spoken of really unless you're a survivor or unless you're a family member really of someone who's gone through it. So this was something, I realized I've gone, that's it. Like that's exactly what was happening to me, which then led me down the path of seeking further treatment, obviously steering as far away from that hospital and their team. I hate to say it, but they ripped me a new one, if I can say it like that. I'm being kind. They didn't do their job at all. So I guess my main point of topic was raising awareness around postpartum psychosis in particular, and then what can potentially occur following, or, the research behind it. It's pretty impressive, and people do go through it and unfortunately not survive. It can lead to very, very tragic events. So I'm very grateful that I'm actually here to be able to share this, and that my experience, although my perception of reality was gone, like I was in another world, that it was actually a relatively mild case of psychosis, and that thank God I got treatment when I did. I should have been probably hospitalized. I should have gone to probably a mother baby unit or something like that. But this is where trauma, Shana, kind of comes back into it, because when I was younger, I had my first psychiatric admission. So then when the psychiatrist is like, hey, take this medication, it will help you sleep, and I'm an insomniac and trying to care for a newborn, I'm not going to sleep. And then all she said was, have you heard of MBUs? And I'm like, no, what's that? And she goes, look, I think we've got one here and here that are relatively close to you. But she was so quick to just like get me out of that room and onto the next patient. And I was like, I was, mid psychosis at that point. So I went and obviously researched mother baby units myself, and bang, like adult inpatient psychiatric facility. And I think that blew the lid off for me, because no way in hell was I going to be taken away from my partner and my other daughter and back to a psychiatric facility. Like, that's an extremely traumatic reminder for me. Like, I ain't going back there, no matter what it takes. So, I'm still undergoing treatment. I'm still seeing psychologists and psychiatrists and things like that, which I think is really, really important to not be ashamed of either. I'm kind of at that point where I'm like, screw it. If anybody asks any questions, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to speak the truth and not hide anything at all, because it's like the last 15 years of my life, Shana, and mental health. I'm no longer the poster child of anxiety and depression. There's a reason I went through postpartum psychosis. There is a history of mood disorders, bipolar, things like that in my family. So yeah, as I've been saying, I've kind of got my label. I've been able to rediscover, who I am and go, no, I'm not generally an anxious person. I'm certainly not depressed. I think everybody goes through episodes of depression, at some point in their lives. But yeah, like a lucky dip. You never kind of know what Emma you're going to get, really. And if that is bipolar, well then cool. If that is borderline personality disorder or complex PTSD, like, these things are actually really interesting to learn about, because you can start to tick those boxes and go, well, nah, that actually explains everything, that gives me now sense of purpose and closure. And I went through 2 years, and then we count the miscarriage 10 years ago. My body and my mind has been through a lot of shit, been through a lot. And yeah, to get such real answers like that at the end of it, purely from my own self-awareness and my poor GP, then yeah, I'm able to sort of be in this position and talk about these things so openly.
And I just want to, acknowledge you for sharing everything that you have, and in such sort of detail and vulnerability, because, it is so important. And like you said, there is no direct link to, miscarriage and postpartum psychosis. But in miscarriage, we do go through a postpartum period. So there's nothing to say that this can't happen. And 1 in 6 women the statistic for PTSD, it's like 1 in 6 women will go through or be diagnosed with PTSD after pregnancy loss. So again, like, there is such big sort of mental health issues that can come from pregnancy loss. I feel like it all sort of stems from the very, very beginning, how we're treated at the very beginning, and whether we felt safe when we were going through that miscarriage experience, or whether we felt unsafe and then led to having that trauma imprinted in our body. And then we carry that through. And then everything that we go through and experience after that compounds into our system, into that trauma, and into that stress response that our body hasn't had a chance to resolve.
Oh, absolutely.
We keep living from that place. We keep living from high anxiety or depression. We keep responding to life from that place. And it just becomes this, like you said before, it's just this like sort of snowball effect. Like it just keeps rolling into the next thing. And it can become, multiple different, when you see a GP, you can get multiple different diagnoses, but a lot of it can stem back to the trauma that's in your body that we have to process. And like you said, even yourself, it comes down to us and our own taking our initiative to help ourselves. We don't get that support from the doctors. For myself, they just said, keep an eye on your mental health. And I was like, okay. But when you're slipping into depression, you don't know that.
No, absolutely not. You don't know that. You need someone other than yourself to advocate this sort of stuff. And like it defeats you. Like I've never been so just bleh in my life, like empty, exhausted. I'm still fighting. Like I've said some things, lately that I do regret very much so about the system as a whole. But do you know what? Deep down, I don't think I'd say it if I didn't mean it. It is coming from a place of internal rage. I've always been a rager, always. So I think if someone, right from the get-go said, Emma, suffering a miscarriage is very traumatic. Instead of just, get some rest, like don't get me wrong, my partner was incredible, but he didn't know what the hell was going on either. Like we were so young, and I just remember laying in the bath and just crying and crying and crying and crying. And at the time, that was my release. But it obviously now has just stayed with me. And thank goodness I'm in a place where I can start to process all of these things. But I've got a lot of things now to process, in comparison to probably just PTSD at the start, because then I would have had an entirely different pregnancy with my first. And then I would have, I would have had a very different experience being pregnant with Kaylee. I'm sure of it. If someone had have just said, hey, Emma, because I've shared my family history, I've shared my mental health history. If someone said, hey, Emma, you're very likely to suffer from psychosis. You are very likely to have your very first episode. Yeah, that's terrifying. That's frightening. But I guarantee you now, the honesty and just being real about it would have helped me prepare. I would have known the warning signs. My family would have known the warning signs. It could have led to a very, very, very tragic event. And that's why my heart is so much, in advocacy and in raising awareness. I said to you at the start, I have verbal diarrhea. I don't stop talking ever. But I like to think that some of the stuff I do touch on, just one person out there could relate to and go, hey, if that ever happens to me, I know that there are safe spaces. I know that there are people who will empathize and will understand and just listen. I'm pretty sick of having, my experiences invalidated. So I've been hanging on to this day since I reached out to you, really, just to get it out there and, just let everybody know that it's so fine to talk about this stuff. And do whatever you need to do to heal. Don't worry about what other people think and say, because it's such an individualized journey and nobody knows what you're thinking or feeling really other than yourself. So you've just got to listen to that.
One in 4 pregnancies will result in miscarriage. 1 in 8 women will experience infertility. 1 in 100 women will experience recurrent miscarriage. And 1 in 160 births end in stillbirth. Have you been wanting to make a difference in the lives of women or men who have experienced pregnancy loss because you can see so many suffering in silence, but you just don't know how? Collectively, we can change how bereaved parents can access mental, physical and emotional support after their experience. There is a lot of women with unhealed trauma, and there is a huge gap in the current support system when it comes to bereaved parents' recovery after loss. There are too many women and men suffering in silence. The Pregnancy Loss Practitioner Certification is a worldwide, one-of-a-kind program that gives you proven methods designed for healthcare professionals, medical staff, midwives, nurses, doulas, birth workers, coaches, and angel parents alike. The Pregnancy Loss Practitioner Certification is bridging that gap. It will give you a proven support structure to follow and education specific to pregnancy loss, created by a lost mum. It is creating more education specifically for loss so that you can enhance your service and become the point of difference. Or you can create the support that you so desperately needed in your healing after loss. This is the next level of growth and expansion you have been searching for. So does this sound like something that you have been searching for? Let's explore this more together. You can head to the episode show notes where you'll find the program application, or direct message me on Instagram and let's open up the conversation in how you can use this education. You have a gift, and I look forward to supporting you and witnessing you bring your gift to the world, healing and transforming women's lives. What were your first sort of warning signs, I guess, for yourself? So for anyone else, it's kind of, I mean, I know, you said it's like 1 in 1,000 women will experience postpartum psychosis, and to really consider it, this is an awareness from your body, a sign from your body to go, you need help straight away. Like, this is really important that you seek help straight away.
It's a medical emergency. I know that now. Absolutely. It started from lack of sleep, and it just became, it was at the point where I was so tired. I was having, I guess, nightmares in a sense, but also very vivid images. It was, around the time that there were those regional bushfires, at the start of the year. So I was hyper vigilant. A lot of the visual hallucinations were fires. I pictured the house on fire, the bedroom, everything like that. And look, Kaylee, she was still sleeping in our bedroom with me at the time. And it was sort of, it was images and noises of just grueling, fire and attack, and we weren't safe. And in my mind, we weren't safe. And it's really, really hard to actually explain in words, because my perception of what was real and what was not, it was like what was in my dreams and what I was subconsciously, I suppose, thinking about and processing. It was almost like bang, my eyes would open, and I wasn't sure if I was still in a dream or if I was in reality. But the thing that struck me most was, I actually don't know how long I had gone without sleep. It would have been at least all night that night prior. And it was about 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was feeding Kaylee, and the image, like it was a full-blown hallucination I had of my partner walking past our bedroom door, and he was on the phone to his dad saying, what time are you going to come up? I'll see you at 9:30, 10 or whatever. And it was like I'm sitting here in bed and I'm looking at him go past and go back again. And I could hear his dad on the phone. He was on loudspeaker, and I've gone, oh, okay, well, God, it's 5 o'clock in the morning. Like, I really don't feel up to visitors right now. I remember thinking that. And then I don't know what time it was, Shana. I just went to my partner, hey, what time is your dad coming up? Like, I thought he was going to be here at 9:30. And the look on his face was just like, what are you on about? He goes, I've only just woken up. And I'm like, right, okay. My body physically shook it off. I'm like, oh, that's weird. Nah, all good. And then it was also, unfortunately, our poor dog, Rufus, was like the size of a house. And it's something that I actually laugh about it now. That's a way of coping, I think. That's a bit of a coping mechanism for me. I had images of our dog, Rufus, times 10. He was huge. He was mean. He was angry. And then my thought process behind that was, he's going to attack me. He's going to get the girls, all this horrible, horrible stuff that goes on in your head. And intrusive thoughts is a big one. And that's when, I think a lot of mothers, they actually end up harming themselves or their baby. And obviously that can lead to really, really, really horrible, horrific stuff that I actually don't feel like I'm in a place to be able to talk about that, but we get the idea. You see it on the news and things like that. And I think there's a huge stigma around it, and especially mothers with personality disorders or bipolar. We do know that having a history of bipolar disorder actually increases your chance of suffering from postpartum psychosis. And this was something that I discovered myself as well. And it kind of all started to make sense from there. I'm like, there was certainly a chance of me experiencing this, and I did. And I was just told I needed sleep, and if I had have caught up on some sleep, then this may very well not have happened, but there's a chance it could have also. And my body was, in a very much so fight, flight, freeze response. It was just in overdrive. I wanted to run away from everything that I was experiencing, and I did very much so want it to end. So the urge, I guess, was there, but I found the strength to not act on anything, just get myself and the girls in the car, drive to my doctor's, also because I thought our house was on fire and we were going to die. Like, I've never felt so panicked in my life. I'm like, we need to get out of here. So anyway, I ended up at the doctor's, and I think I was psychotic for a few days after that. Still nobody knew what was happening. I just kind of had to let my body ride it out and readjust and catch up on the sleep in other ways, in natural ways. But for other people that may be experiencing this or maybe witnessing a mother go through those warning signs, Action on Postpartum Psychosis is actually a really good organisation, a global organisation to follow. There's a lot of things out there that you can kind of educate yourselves on, but certainly if someone is off, is not their usual selves, in a very heightened state, I suppose for me I was manic for weeks. I just couldn't switch off. All those sorts of things, just having really unusual sort of beliefs and speech. Speech is another one, erratic speech. I would be getting to a hospital. I'd be seeking very urgent medical treatment. And that's just the facts. That's just the statistics. I'm not an expert in this area, but I certainly experienced it firsthand. And like I said, just thank God it wasn't more serious than it was.
Yeah. And I want to obviously, I really appreciate you being here as well and having that strength to pull yourself through. And instead of, turning to self-harm, you went to the doctors. Like, that was you're like, I need to get out, but I need to go to somewhere that can help me. And to have that thought process, like, over wanting to, end it all, like, it would be, I could imagine it being such a really hard decision to make.
I was very confused.
Yeah.
Very, very confused. I had a million voices in my head,
I can only imagine.
I just had to pick out the strongest.
Yeah.
Pick out the strongest one. Yeah.
The one that was going to lead to the most help rather than, the alternative.
Yeah, absolutely. My mama bear mode and my mama bear instincts, fight mode kicked in big time. So, thank God.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing too. Like, you did have and it is hard, like you said, other mums have chosen different avenues and harmed themselves. So to override that as well and have that sort of mama bear instinct and go, you know what, I need to do this for me and I need to keep them safe. But yeah, I can only commend you for everything that you've been able to do for yourself, first and foremost, like taking that, so taking the power back into your own hands and going, you know what, I need to do this. I need to figure out what's happening and I need to do it for myself because no one else is actually supporting me through this. And then being able to stand up in that position and go, I have been through this and I don't want anyone else to go down this path either, and bringing awareness to it because, you know, before having you on the show, like I didn't know anything about postpartum psychosis. So I've gone and done a lot of research about it myself. And, you know, and it can happen through pregnancy loss and it can happen, I believe it can happen through pregnancy loss only because we're going through the similar hormonal changes, we're going through the similar postpartum period, but also it can happen, you know, obviously with women going through healthy pregnancies. But there is that link. They do mention that link between bipolar and postpartum psychosis, whether bipolar is just generalized in the family or you've personally been diagnosed that yourself. But like you said before, to have a doctor to sit down with you, and even if it is in the family history, to go, okay, you're pregnant, bipolar is in the family history. These are some of the things that you might encounter. And it's not to say it will happen. And it's, you know, this is where I believe the medical system is really lacking, especially in terms of really giving you the right information, especially, and, you know, around miscarriage as well.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, I don't understand why they can't give you that everything could go perfectly fine and you'll be happy. Or, you know, these are the things that could happen, and talk to you about postpartum psychosis, because if for any reason you do experience it, you have that awareness already. Be like, oh, actually, my GP talked to me about this. It's the same with, you know, miscarriages. You know, why can't they tell you kind of worst case scenario, what you might expect? In most cases, this is what most women will experience. And some people don't even experience it as trauma. But in worst case, in worst cases, it can be a very, very traumatic experience. And, you know, it can really affect your mental health and physical health. So maybe these are some options, you know, that you have.
Yeah, it needs to be a broader conversation. Absolutely. Rather than just being dished out a couple of pamphlets and brochures. Here, use this resource, use this. The non-for-profit organisation COPE, Centre of Perinatal Excellence, that's one that I have done, fundraising for. I've raised quite a bit of awareness around what they do as an organisation and how they support the emotional well-being of parents. And that's just their work and their resources on postpartum psychosis. That's what actually saved me in the end. And I was given a pamphlet at one of my antenatal checkups. I was like, oh yeah, cool. This looks good. But it's then that education around it. Like, here, this is what I'm giving you because. Yeah. It's just like we're not given the time and we're not given the respect, really. It actually comes down to, nobody ever just had that conversation with me. And I know I'm not the only mother out there to just kind of feel, like another one that's gotten lost in the system and just palmed off to fend for themselves. It's a simple conversation like this between you and I right now that could very well save someone's life. And that's huge to me. Clearly yourself, with all the work that you've put, you know, into what you do, Shana, but it doesn't take much.
No.
And I can't help but wish it were different. But hopefully with this sort of stuff, it can change. And for me, there is bipolar in my family. And 15 years later, it's very likely that, I am bipolar as well. I'm not too sure which type yet, but there's a mood disorder, traits of borderline personality disorder, all that sort of stuff. And I'm like, okay, it makes sense now. That's another thing that I have to grieve and process and work through, because that's, just given me the answers entirely as to why this probably happened. But had someone said that to me, like straight up, hey, you know, this family member's bipolar, there's a chance you are too. Let's treat it like you're bipolar. And then work through the steps of the postpartum period to prevent psychosis, for example. And then I'd be like, oh, that sounds pretty full on. Like, let's talk a bit more about that. And then, maybe I wouldn't be in this position.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, just a simple conversation can literally change someone's life and then give you the awareness, whether it happens to you or not. You have that awareness. And if anything was to, go down that path, then you and, your partner and your family members would actually be aware of what is happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I just want to ask you 2 questions to finish off the interview. So the first question is, what do you wish you knew after experiencing pregnancy loss?
Yeah, I wish I knew more about PTSD instead of it just being a term used. Like, everybody can experience traumatic stress disorder for a number of reasons. But yeah, I just wish I was told that having a miscarriage is trauma, really, and can stay with you for a long period of time, mentally and physically.
Yeah. It's a really important awareness. And it's something that I'm advocating for as well, in terms of, how our bodies then cope years later.
Yeah.
If we don't address the trauma at the time of it happening, our bodies go into a coping mechanism, and all of these other things end up coming out as a coping mechanism. So, to have that awareness from the start at day dot, like when you're going through it, how, what's happening to you, how can you receive support while this is happening to you?
Correct. Yeah. And that there's such a thing as complex PTSD. I never knew that either until I was diagnosed with it. So absolutely, if you don't address it, if you don't know the things to look out for and what to do in that situation, then you become in this, you're in such a dysregulated state of mind for so long. Yeah, I wish I knew more about it 10 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And so now, where can people connect with you if they want to, talk to you more?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have 2 Instagram pages. Look, one is dedicated though to this sort of stuff. My Instagram handle, it's at self.less.soul. I'm reading that. I'm picturing that out loud. Yeah, but Shana, I'm sure you'll share that one for me. But predominantly Instagram, because that's just, I like to express, in forms of writing, pictures, do weird things, tattoos, dye my hair. So you never know. You never know how I'm going to quite express myself next. But I am a bit of a storyteller. So I share a lot of the real truth on that Instagram page. And my door is always open. I am a busy mum. I'm studying. And yeah, I've got a lot on my plate. They're both under 2. But I will always hold space for those that are just after a listening ear, and for a non-judgmental, non-stigma, I suppose, place to just say whatever the hell they're feeling, get it off their chest. And just know that you are certainly not alone in what you may be experiencing. It's cliche, but they do say it gets better, and it does get better, but it gets really, really hard at points. And as long as you know, the right places to kind of look, and I'm full of resources. So please, if you want a good one, just anybody can reach out and cope. Cope is amazing. So please, please, please I will give them a shout out any opportunity. So give them a follow and utilize some of their resources in the postpartum period, because they're a lifesaver. Literally saved my life. So yeah.
Amazing. I will link everything that Emma has been speaking about in terms of handles, social media, and even I can link in Cope as well, so I can have it as an easy access point for people to reach out. That'll all be in the show notes. So it should be quite easy to reach out to Emma if you need a listening ear from someone who actually gets you.
Thanks, Shana.
That's okay. Thank you so much, Emma, for being a part of the What I Wish I Knew After Pregnancy Loss podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you to all that have listened in. If this episode was valuable to you, I invite you to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, and I look forward to supporting you on the next episode. Thank you for listening in with me today. I hope you found this episode helpful. If you did, I would absolutely love to hear from you. Take a screenshot of this episode, share it to social media, and tag me at Institute of Healing_PL. I love seeing what is resonating with you right now. If you want to chat further, I invite you to connect with me through Instagram. Head over and follow my Instagram account, send me a DM, and let's open the communication. If you want to know more about how you can be the support for others, head to the show notes and fill out the application form for the Pregnancy Loss Practitioner certification. I want to also note here that what I share within the episodes is not medical advice. If you need further support, please consult your doctor. Thank you again. Much love to you. Be gentle with yourself, and I look forward to supporting you on the next episode.